Hello and welcome once again to Red Gaming Tech. My name is Amata. Today is the 13th of July and this time I have some news for you regarding Assassin's Creed Syndicate, as the creative director Marc-Alex Cote had a few things to say regarding some of the improvements that Ubisoft Quebec are wanting to make with their navigation system, primarily what they call the entry into window system. And by that, what do they mean? Well, as you probably remember, one of the coolest things about Unity was building interiors were introduced to the franchise, but of course getting inside those buildings, well, it was not amazing some of the time. More finicky and annoying than it should have been. And Mark had this to say regarding that. Quote, "In terms of navigation, we've improved the entry into window, which was something players were complaining about last year. We really took that to heart, tried to find solutions to make it better and make the navigation more fluid overall, so that players would stick less on objects that they don't want to, and it would be much more driven by the player where the player wants to go." And in a similar vein of thought, Ubisoft Quebec have introduced a rope launcher in order to make navigation more fluid. Now, some Assassin's Creed purists have kind of grumbled about it, as of course it does seem to kind of negate the need for climbing, but according to Cote, it helps players get into the game and enjoy themselves, since the cityscape is so different to past games. I'll give my opinions on that in just a second, but let's see what he had to say first. Quote, "Victorian London is a very different city than what we built in the past. The streets are much wider, and with more modernity comes much higher buildings. We've got the tallest building we've ever had in the franchise. One of the things we know for a fact from all the years of experience we have on Assassin's Creed is, the easier it is for players to get onto rooftops, the more they enjoy the game. This is really what we're focused on." And yeah, I can kind of see where he's coming from. I too was a little bit unsure about the grappling hook. In theory it sounded good, but it makes, less sort of picking your way upside of buildings like a cat stuck on the curtains. But climbing upside of buildings, running over rooftops, that is half the fun of Assassin's Creed. But I suppose when you've got literally the tallest building in the game, it might not be so fun to laboriously do that for like 10 minutes or whatever. And it's not like the grappling hook is going to get rid of all climbing. It's obviously going to only have a certain range, and it's obviously going to be able to have upgradable range. That's just a predictable upgrade they're probably going to have. But it's still only going to go so far, so there's still going to be some climbing, just kind of minimising it a bit. And he does have a fairly good point about the width as well of the buildings, which is obviously, at least in my opinion, why they added the whole thing of being able to jump on top of horse and carriages and then kind of use that as like a stepping stone across the road to not break the flow. Now, he also touched on the positive reception of the stealth button in Unity, which was again one of the best additions, that you just go into stealth whenever you want, not when there's a handy bush nearby. And apparently Ubisoft Quebec have added more button inputs and reduced dependency on sticky cover. And so you sort of snapped to the nearest thing to further refine the system. Now, obviously, how well all this actually gels together, we just don't know until we actually get our hands on the game, which of course isn't happening till later on this year, so it's impossible to tell. I am cautiously hopeful. As you guys know, I loved the Assassin's Creed franchise. Unfortunately, lackluster games have kind of whittled that love down. Unfortunately, Unity was just such a disappointment, to be honest, especially after this so strong entry that was Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Assassin's Creed 2 up until that point had been my favourite Assassin's Creed game in the franchise, and it didn't look like anything was going to knock it off that pedestal, but 4 came along and made it walk the plank pretty much. And after that, having Unity be such a mess, especially on PC, it wasn't good. Now, we finally have a Victorian setting for Assassin's Creed, which, as I've said before, is something I've been asking for ages, and I really, really want it to be good. And to be honest, I think they kind of have to make it good, because they can't afford another disaster like Unity, especially on PC, where we now finally have the power to get refunds, assuming we bought on Steam. So, we'll see. I'm cautiously hopeful. Fingers are crossed very, very tightly, though. But probably best to not buy it on launch, regardless of anything else. Anyway, that's me done. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.